Yeah, come in, come in.
Want to get a light bulb?
Oh, go, you're gonna get, oh, is that kind of bulb?
Yep.
Oh, that was a different shape. Okay,
I,
fine.
and I tightened up your outlet and your bathroom was loose, where you plug your hair dryer in.
Oh, thank you. You can leave the door open,
All right.
because I'm not gonna be talking.
All right.
Thanks.
Back a little bit.
Take your time. Get some coffee.
Hmm.
Morning, everybody. I've been given,
Welcome, engineers, to our first meeting in the fund. Have the agenda. We'll call the meeting to order. We have a few comments to make before we the agenda. So we have a very full agenda today, and we have a limited time. Don't have the classroom because we're not meeting on the first Thursday of the month, and we need to be out of this room by 10:50. Coming at 10:15 instead of 10:30, and she has anticipate. The next thing to tell you is that Larry Randall has requested, and we have granted a 2-month leave of absence. He is recovering from surgery, broken bone in his arm, and we hope to have him back in March. And the third thing is, I hope you all have received your Woodland Pond handbook. Look them up. The Appendix A is updated as of this morning, and at least one correction to make. Tom Gilder will be the chairperson of the physical fund. You also received an email, a copy of Appendix B. I was a little confused by this. There are no changes in what you received by email from what was printed in the book. So, the members of the council have one.
This is being recorded on audio, so if you speak, if you choose to speak, please state your name the first time only. If you speak repetitively, you don't have to, just please, first names only, and picks it up. Makes it a lot easier for me when I have to do the transcription.
Getting into the meeting session, would someone like to make a move to approve the minutes of our last meeting on December 8th? Caroline, Fred, in favor? Motion carries. Larry and back on. The approval of the executive session on December 18th. Motion. Carol?
No.
And Fred?
Okay.
On. John, do you?
No.
Report? No communications. Moving right along, communications and sent by the council liaison to the board of directors, that's Larry Randall. He has submitted. And on in the minutes, in the binder, in the where you can read, and I encourage you to read. We will need a replacement for this responsibility for 2 months. Brad volunteered. I would like to thank him for that. Yeah. Carrying on. The report. Report.
So good morning. I just have a list of items that we discussed, details because it is an hour long. There were compliments for the food for the holidays, and we were asked, one thing I would say to you, that if you have something that you would like to communicate, especially to the staff, that if you send it to Phil or Jerry in their email, it's email to the staff. Next thing is the education of residents concerning the disposal of the disposal, and I should say return of the containers, and that began yesterday with Michelle's talk. Let's please try to get those back. The alternative to the present container is to return to the former container. So try to keep that in mind if you have trouble opening it. She mentioned that also. The renovation of the kitchen is scheduled to start around July. And one thing they did want us to tell you is that the furniture in the pictures that was in the Woodland Life are not the final decision. They are samples of the furniture and chairs and so on for the residents to see and maybe even try. So this decision has not been made. There was a suggestion that residents be allowed to opt the dining, in the renovation to lessen the work on the kitchen staff. So keep that in mind if you think it's a good idea. Remember that the location of the compost is across from the flex space. Availability of their dinner rolls are always available with the there's no cost for that. That interests you. And a resident's interested in volunteering to take speakers out to lunch or dinner using their decline should volunteer. I think Carrie's going to ask for volunteers for that, and if you would like to do it, sounds very interesting. You get a chance to. There's also an effort to reduce the sodium content.
Thank you, Margaret. Lima, or no? Yes, it may be the chief of she is reminding me that I forgot. Is that correct? Can you?
We cannot
Can't
hear
hear her.
you.
Hear?
It's all muffled. Can you hear me?
And see if you can come to the rescue.
Hey everyone.
Hi, several of us on the Zoom cannot hear anyone speaking at the council.
Got it. Can you hear me right now?
Yes?
Okay, awesome. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Likely. It just means perhaps I need to put this closer. But we'll leave issue.
Can they start over? Because we heard nothing.
Especially Molly.
Yeah, I don't think they're able to type.
Let's start over. I would be glad to, after the meeting, if you stay on to repeat what was said, so you were able to hear us. Can you hear me?
Better.
I apologize for the ear session. Let's go back to that. We have
I have two questions. Molly, can you tell us who are the liaisons for all the committees, please? That's question number one. My other question was memo that Michelle sent her yesterday. Does anyone know who has left? I'm not asking why or whatever, just the name.
Michelle Slim speaks for itself. I don't expect for information.
Joy Drive. There's two. Question has to do with the disappearance of, it's probably Ruth, I think, but it doesn't. That's not the person. Question about due process. And I wonder if we could table it to the next residents council meeting because I don't know where else to bring it, but it's very creepy to live in a place where people just disappear. And I want to know if they have due process. This has happened many times before, and it's just it's totally. It feels like Argentina to have people disappear. Now, there should be some way that we know that employees have some due process or some way of responding to whatever's happened. It doesn't have to involve residents, but I'd like to put it on the agenda for the council to discuss. The task force to figure it out.
We can do that.
I know ombudsman, something.
Anything else from you? Financial Review Committee, Fred.
Financial Review Committee met on January 5th. Flash report and other financial of significant concerns. Cash is flowing in from the capital campaign essentially. We discussed the recent land purchases and the financing of some. We also discussed the capacity issue. Michelle said the current problem arises from people living longer than expected in the health center. In addition to still having 16 non-contract holders currently in the health center, which will eventually attrition out. She said that actuarial studies indicate that the current capacity problem is an anomaly rather than a trend. She discussed the stricter admission process that was implemented a year and a half ago, which should help prevent premature movement going into the future. And when we build the expansion campus, we will definitely have to make provisions to expand the health center. She accepted that. And they're considering various options, including expanding the current health center or adding a health center annex in the expansion site. We started addressing the dining price increase issue, but did not have time, also had a time issue. Michelle did show her analysis about half the residents went over their decline balance and half had money left over for this calendar year. And we expect to resume discussing this topic.
Brad, any questions? Karen?
No.
Can people hear? Can everyone hear? Alema? It looks like. And. All right. Carl, you have a report from the health center?
No meeting.
No meeting, all right.
All the participants are muted.
Okay. Fred Walensky. Paul Brown. Willie to be chair. Was nominated. The nomination. Effective February. I will be the chair. Fred will be the interim secretary until a new person volunteers. Like space in the basement. And finally, Jones was filling in for Tom, who was not feeling well. He suggested that residents please not stand by the windows watching when the dumpster is working very close by, just in case. Stay away from the windows when things are happening right outside.
Thank you, Carl. Any comments? Caroline, the library committee.
All right, the library committee met on January 5th. Year-end circulation for 2025 for 2,295 books. The librarian and books, K-12 and public library. The committee hopes to show at WP, but it will eventually be shown on PDF.
Thank you, Caroline. Good morning.
One, hear me okay? Okay. How would you like to start with me? Madam Chair, President?
I have had one question that came up with ears, and that has to do with the letter you sent out yesterday.
Okay.
And the question had to do with wanting to know about the due process. Deciding if someone, I assume, is being let go rather than.
Sure. So I'm happy to talk about the process. I will neither confirm nor deny the circumstances related to this specific situation, even if this was a Woodland Pond derived departure. But in the event that we have to separate an employee from Woodland Pond, this is the way the process works. So we have a progressive counseling policy that has what's called progressive counseling and discipline policy, but it's in our employee handbook, and it's got 3 different levels of violations, and each of those is weighted differently. So, group 1 violations are things like tardiness, absenteeism, didn't, do your time clock properly, kind of, not major concerns, but just things that we need to make sure that you're doing. And each of those attaches to counseling, the first couple of violations, and then you get a verbal warning, and then graduated written warnings, to 4 written warnings. So you really have to kind of do a lot of violating of the group 1 violations. Group 2 violations are things like unprofessional behavior in the workplace. I didn't bring it with me, so I don't have it, but there's a middle series that are more serious than the group 1 violations. And in each of those, there's always going to be counseling that happens. Again, there's a number that you need to accumulate in order for us to ever consider termination. Our goal is to be counseling and providing, intervention to avoid that from happening in the future. And then there are group 3 violations. And group 3 violations are things like violated HIPAA, a resident, aggressive behavior on campus, brought a weapon or a firearm, put under the influence of a substance. These are pretty serious things. And the way the policy is written is if you do one of the group 3 violations, it says may result in immediate termination. Now, we have the ability, and often somebody gets to, let's say, their 4th group 1 written violation, and it should be termination according to the policy. We can implement things in lieu of termination. So if we have an employee that otherwise is not problematic, but really has a time and attendance problem, we have the ability under any of those circumstances to choose not to terminate. So the language reads may result in termination, but it works really well, and we very, very rarely terminate. Typically when we do terminate, it's for people that have had what we call no call, no show, 2 or more shifts in a row. So basically they've just not shown up to work. They haven't notified us. It's not, using time and assuming that they're okay. So obviously we've checked in and we verified that they're okay and they're just not showing up to work. We don't really tolerate that. We've got ample paid time off for our employees. I think full-time people start with almost 40 paid days of paid time off from day 1, and then it grows from there as you're here for longer. So there's really no excuse for that. And we need our workers to be at work. So normally if there is a termination, it's because of that kind of thing, and very, very rarely related to performance issues. So if someone is underperforming in their role, we put them on a performance improvement plan, and we don't even take them down progressive counseling. So that's another separate mechanism that basically just allows us to re-in-service those people and educate them. Does that answer the question? I'm happy to make copies of the progressive counseling policy available at Concierge if anybody wants to pick a copy of.
With the Joy, you raised a question. Would you like to see that? Would you like to pick up a copy?
Sure, I'll leave copies there. Okay, good. And then you can ask me any questions. So should we go through the items?
Any other questions for Michelle on this issue? Right, Wayne?
We need, and like people said this morning, people were getting coffee saying, well, it's not Tanya, we saw her last night.
and it's not this person, we saw them this morning, but it might be blah, 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 blah. And, you know, it's a level of understandable, perfectly normal concern that somebody who's in your daily life has disappeared. You don't realize they disappeared for a number of days. You've ruled out everyone else. It's just an unfortunate mood relating, atmosphere affecting.
I don't disagree with that at all. I welcome suggestions as to how we can alleviate that, but the issue at hand is obviously confidentiality with personnel. So I think to some extent it's somewhat unavoidable, but fortunately it happens relatively rarely. I think the last time was 2 or 3 years ago, actually. That was 2 years ago. That was more than that. Yeah, time is flying. But anyways, I mean, fortunately, it doesn't happen too often. But okay, so if I may, I want to introduce Vicki Baker, for those of you that don't know her. And I will be talking more about why Vicki is here. I'm going to have her come up when I'm ready. I'm going to go through a couple of things first. She's always ready, let me tell you. I just want to go through a couple of non-Vicki Baker related items first, and then the star of the show will join me here. So just a couple of things to provide updates on. Go Icon, which I know there's been some confusion about, you've heard Jason and Cameron refer to the resident engagement platform, and there's a lot of confusion about what the heck that means. And I haven't talked about it on my address at all, but I'm gonna start doing that. I'm making myself a mental note. So for years, Woodland Pond has rudimentarily communicated with residents through Connected Living. There's a Connected Living app for your phone, connected to your Alexa. It's what powers the displays here in the hallways. It has never been a great fit. There's been a lot of functionality that we have been anxious to have and have not had. Like, for example, a resident forum like BraveNet, that's not through Connected Living right now. It's a separate system. So we've been looking at different ways to bring our communication with you onto one platform. So that's emergency messaging, that's resident community forum, like a listserv, notices, things that go on to 1340, the computers. And so Jason and Cameron have been evaluating. Well, first it was Jason and Terrell, and then Cameron got involved to evaluate a myriad of different softwares that afford this capability. And ultimately, they collectively determined that Go Icon, it's called Go Icon, is the name of the software that we are migrating to. So by the end of this month, am I distracting you by doing that? I'm sorry. No, okay, I'm sorry. I know I'm childlike. Charming, I'm sure. So Go Icon is going to replace Connected Living, and what's happening right now is that Cameron and Terrell and Jason are meeting with Go Icon every Thursday to just work out the final logistics, make sure that all of the functionality and all of the applications that we need are ready to go. There is going to be a soft rollout of this to our executive team and to a group of residents that have volunteered that I'm referring to as preceptors, but basically they're going to help you all integrate this software in addition to information sessions and things that we have. I want to thank those volunteers, and I'm sure that we will have opportunity for more volunteers. So what it's going to do is it's going to be a free app on your phone. There's a desktop capability. It's going to tie into your 1340. It's going to allow you to put work orders in directly through the computer. There's a whole variety of functionalities of things. I'm not positive on reservations. I think the goal is for reservations as well, but it's really to integrate. And BraveNet will be going away, and all of your forum communication will go into Go Icon. So there's going to be more to come on that. But I'm expecting that the soft rollout between the exec team and the preceptor group is going to happen by the end of January. And I'm hoping that we're worldwide on this by mid-February. Just wanted to give an update on that. I don't know if those people have been contacted. When I talked to Cameron yesterday, she said she had the list, and some of you in this room are on it, as I recall. I don't think the initial meeting has been set up yet, but I'll remind her. So I'll make sure she does that. The next thing that I wanted to touch on is
Hold it.
I mean, I have been involved with prior lifetime, and there were issues about the design and the functionalities, and I don't know if there was any input from residents also. I understand that Cameron and Ariel have been involved in that.
yeah, residents. There was resident involvement.
Because they had a group meeting, residents were invited. People from Con were there, plus people from here. It was when I was away. That was my, yes, yeah, okay.
So you can, I'll connect you with Cameron just so that you can get any of your feedback sent to them too. But we invited residents, anybody that wanted to participate. Yeah. All right. The next thing I want to talk about briefly, and I'll explain why. We are going to make the health center bed count discussion a cornerstone part of the discussion at management Q&A in January. There's a lot to discuss. We had a preliminary discussion and data review with the finance committee on Monday, and I think that was probably valuable in terms of just understanding how our bed count and availability of beds is established, the underlying data is, the process, what we're considering as part of the expansion, what the considerations are. So I want to have a protracted discussion about that aspect, but we're not going to do it here. We're going to do it at management Q&A in January. So to that end, if you have specific questions that you want us to address related to that, and this is really the design, how beds are currently being allocated, the design going forward, what we're going to need in terms of assisted living, memory care, skilled, please do send me those questions in advance. I think we have a good idea of what the questions are, but please send them to me so that we can be extra prepared, and we will make that a topic for wide discussion at the management Q&A in January. Dining dollars, I wanted to just cap this off. Hopefully this was discussed at finance committee this week, and I think it came up again at dining committee. I had been asked some questions at finance committee in December about how did everything shake out with the dining allocation of points related to primarily vis-a-vis the increases that happened in October. And I did not have the data handy when I was asked in December, so I collected it and brought it forth to the January meeting. I was able to announce contracts for dining for 2025, and for those that are interested, 114 of our contracts, so that's a single or a couple, but a contract, we have 207 altogether on the dining plan. 114 ended up with bill at the end of the year, and the average bill for the end of the year was 100 equivalent dollars. So 114 average $100. 93 accounts, contracts, ended up with a credit balance. So they still had declining points available. So 93 had points available, and that average was $243 dollar equivalents. So for those that were interested, it was 114 with a bill, 93 with a credit. So almost 50-50, just like everything at Woodland Commons. I also had the opportunity, I've done an analysis of how the increases would have looked if we had done them as we should have every year annually, rather than all in one fell swoop for 3 years retro. And I provided this data, the inflationary data, to the finance committee yesterday. I hope that you've had a chance to look at that, but essentially what it reiterates is that we had not done a price increase or points increase on dining since 2021. So we needed to catch up for inflation for 22, 23, 24, and 25. We did it in October. And so data, and we used independent inflation calculator website that studies this information. So the food cost escalation over that period of time was 18.9%, okay, cumulatively. So food costs themselves went up from the last time we did an increase to when we did it, 18.9%. So that's what component of our build costs for dining. The larger component is personnel costs. And our personnel costs, so the rates paid to our staff in dining increased just for 20% in the same period of time. So we do annual cost of living, and our lowest paid staff members get the highest percentage increases. So their cost of living adjustments in each of the prior years since then has averaged somewhere between 4, 5, 6, or even 7% over the last 4 years. So taking that entire period, it was just about 20%. So the food costs went up just about 20%, and the personnel costs went just up about 20%. So it all came in one fell swoop in terms of your points changing. What we're committing to, so it's not so much of a sticker shock, is we're going to do that annually now, so that you get the incremental increase if needed, and it will attach to inflation the same way I've just discussed. Our dining program, all it needs to do is break as close to even as possible. It's not a moneymaker, but we need to make sure that those allocations are keeping suit with the market. So I've asked Cameron, because she now is responsible for dining, to calendar an annual increase in October of each year. So that is now on her calendar. So we will plan to address that with dining committee and finance committee at the end of the third quarter each year, and it will now happen annually. Any questions on
The employees increase, does that include things like social security?
So when I did the analysis, I just purely did wages. So I did not include the additional effects of, payroll taxes, benefit accruals, the 403B match. I purely just looked at the wages. When you include the other, it's more.
Yeah, one of the great things about being in the CCRC is that we can all dine together and talk about growing up in the Bronx. And just avail that opportunity to use that money to dine. So the question is, shouldn't we reach out to those the observation process is a problem? That's a problem, or was the dining staff or coming over from the cottages or whatever it is? That seems, that
So I think that's actually a great suggestion. Since we know the 93 that left money points on the table. In some cases, now the 243 that I gave you was an average. In some cases, it's $1. Not a lot of them, but I think what we can do is we can put a survey to all of the contract left declining points on the table and ask them if they can give us some feedback on if they feel like they just, they cook at home or, whatever it is, because that can definitely help us understand, if there's a different product offering that we can do that would, bring them closer to that $0. I'm more than happy to do that. Thank you for the suggestion. Wayne?
There are two issues that get conflated. One is the understandable increase in the cost of dining. Or the other thing is the dollars. That one's a little trickier, obviously. It turns out that the dollar we pay every month we pay amount of money, and that goes up understandably every year. But the 300 remains the same, so it gets every year to be a smaller and smaller percentage of total now that's for food here in dining. And
I think that's also a question. Let me think about that a little bit because we could potentially carve out a certain percentage of the, so let's say if it goes up 3.5%, your monthly service fee. Theoretically, 100 should go up 3.5%. Okay. I have no objection to that. Another good suggestion. Can everybody bring the good ideas for
the new year?
Yes.
I don't know if you find a way. It's possible that some people that usually go over their allowance may restrict themselves from coming to dinner because they say, well, I'm just getting all my money spent already. I don't think it's necessarily a big issue, but we don't know what goes behind it or coming to dinner versus.
So what I recommend then in that case is we will survey both populations of people, but ask them different questions. So the ones that left points on the table, is there something that could have enticed them to use them all? For the people that ended up with a bill, did they feel that their consumption was restricted? And I think that would be good for all of us, that we can put this to bed. We'll have the empirical responses and what people are actually saying rather than speculating. So although everyone does have survey fatigue, you can thank your neighbors because you're going to get another one.
I thought you were going to phrase this, but you've carefully outlined the missing years where food increases were not assessed, and they amounted to quite a considerable amount. However, when you finally got around to assessing and increasing the costs on the menu, can you tell us what percentage was factored in?
I cannot because I don't know. I actually was not involved. I completely delegated that process to Phil and Cameron. She was here at that point, and I did not involve myself in it, but I will make myself a note so that I can follow up and find out what methodology they used. It was not across the board. It was not uniform. Had it been, the soup and salad would have stayed where it was initially, and then Phil ended up reducing that down. So I will get more information on what their methodology was, and I'll let you know.
One other comment. You said that you would consider raising the points amount, the same percentage as the annual increase. However, there are over 90 people who struggled and did not use the full amount, and so that would penalize them, giving them more dollars that they can't spend.
Well, let's do this. Let us first find out if there was truly an interest. And then I'll think about the increase. We're dealing with populations here, as we often do at Woodland Pond. People with, I don't want to say competing, but people with different experiences. So let's do the survey first, then we'll hold on that. I am in favor of increasing it by the 3.5%, if that makes sense. But I do think we should get the intelligence on why those that left points on the table left it on the table. So we'll do it in 2 steps, and I'll report back to you as to the findings. Jackie? Jackie Bondi.
I'm wondering if you'll be able to break down the survey by new people. I can tell you, being a new person, it really took me a while to figure out how to use my points. At first, I was just thinking of the dining room. Then I realized I could do takeout. Then I realized I could go to the cafe and not just do lunch, but I might order lunch and do it for dinner. And I really got better and better at it, but I had to train myself.
I think that's an excellent point, and I will include in the survey a question about how long you've been here. Okay, perfect, Jackie. Thank you so much.
Michelle, I can verify for sure that one of the reasons is these people have had a death in the family or they've been away.
I'm sure that's an aspect of it too. So let's get the data. I'll ask all these kinds of questions and we will revert on this issue. And dining committee, of course. Yes,
And the
finance
finance.
and dining committee. Okay, so what time is it? Okay. So I want to talk about very briefly, I want to just touch on one other topic that we talked about at the Finance Committee, which was the land purchase of the Harrington Street property that's pending as part of the financing. So this is something that rest of the finance additional questions. I just want to make sure that it stands as on the same page about how decisions like this get made. And to be clear, decisions like this, acquiring new property, deciding to proceed with an expansion, deciding to renovate, for example, deciding to go into a joint business venture. All of these decisions are very clearly enumerated in our Woodland Pond bylaws to be the responsibility of the Woodland Pond Board. So if you've not read the bylaws, I would encourage you to do so. And I'm going to be making these kind of references more and more because, as you all know, I love it when I can point to empirical information sources, first-hand sources that you can look at things and consume them yourself. We make this information available to you so that you can look at it and understand what's available to you. You're not taking my interpretation. So whether we like that decision or not, this organization was established, putting that authority in the hands of. They don't do anything in a vacuum. And obviously decisions like this, these real fundamental decisions are made in discussion between management and the board initially, and then vetted with any myriad number of consultants, and then ultimately having to be approved by the numerous authorities that have control over Woodland Pond. So, New York State Department of Financial Services, New York State Department of Health, the Ulster County Capital Resources Corp, which is our financing authority, 10 sets of lawyers, and bondholders. So we don't get to do, and we don't do anything here at Woodland Pond without Mother May I. We have a requirement in the bylaws, in addition to putting the responsibility for these types of actions in the hands of the board. We have a responsibility in the bylaws to have a strong long-range planning function. That is how it's phrased. And so the board is responsible to make sure that not only are we adjudicating and attending to today's requirements, but that there is always a vision for long-range planning. It's outlined in the bylaws. So decisions for today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now, all the time. We have a robust strategic planning process, an entire committee of the board that is just strictly for strategic planning. And this is a combined committee where we're looking at all of these kinds of things. What is extremely important for folks to understand about the Harrington Street purchase and the urban property and the renovation in particular is that all those decisions were taken out of the core board committee work many years ago and moved into a dedicated committee of the board called the Expansion Committee. Okay? Expansion Committee is chaired by Dean Llewellyn, who is our board treasurer. So finance first from an expansion committee perspective. And we did that intentionally. Everything in the fiduciary responsibility has to be at the forefront of any kind of strategic planning that we're doing. So Dean is the chair of that committee. Also on that committee historically, until very recent changes in ability to participate and ultimately expiration of their terms, Ray Smith was the founding member of the Expansion Committee, and he is a resident. And he has been not only at every meeting, he's been the minute taker and the primary voice at the Expansion Committee, in which these decisions were decided upon and presented to our. Dick Barry has been in addition to Ray being the key resident and the second in command of all of the expansion committee members, both of those two resident board members with full voting rights have been on the strategic planning committee since its inception. So they have a strong, and to be clear, not every board member is on every committee. So we intentionally selected, not we, I don't have a vote, the board and the governance committee intentionally placed residents on the strategic planning committee and on the expansion committee in leadership roles so that we are able to have that perspective. Very, very important. Many of you know Woodland Pond is the first CCRC in New York to have voting board members. And that was pushed for by Ray Smith, who is also the person that then has pushed for the expansion in the way that it was. Once the decision was made by the board, it makes sense for us to acquire all of these parcels of land, of which there are 4 in total. So Croce property, which we acquired in 24, 2 urban parcels, which we just acquired in December, and a Harrington parcel, which we will acquire sometime in January or February. All of those decisions then had to all of these different agencies and authorities. And there's specific tax considerations. There's laws within Article 46 about how you acquire land or what. And so I would encourage anyone that is interested in that, or I can actually just put out a document through Constant Contact that links you to the bylaws, that links you to Article 46 and points you to the direction of where you can find the information, the relevant tax provisions, and most importantly, but probably the most challenging to digest, is Woodland Pond has a requirement under our bond documents to publicly disclose all of our financial information. And there's a free data repository that contains all of that information, including the financing document that we just issued related to the $32. It talks about the public hearing, the public notices that went out, which included the Harrington Street purchase as well as the urban parcels. So you can take your time to go through that 500-page document if you'd like. I can sort of direct you to the most interesting points. But there's lots of information. A lot of you are not going to want to information, but I'm happy to share links so that we can, get that. Yeah, I can find it. I see. All right, so now fun stuff. Vicki Baker, hold up. Saved by the bell. So Vicki Baker, some people recognize, or a lot of people recognize, Vicki has done concierge for us on a per diem basis for 5 or 6 months now. Yeah, and she saved the day for me a couple weeks ago. Like truly, we had a resident that had an emergent health condition, and that resident is a caregiver for a spouse that otherwise is probably not fully independent. She's okay, very, very anxious, and very much relies on her spouse for, direction and care and reassurance. And this is an independent living couple. And, he went out, he had to get taken out by EMS. And so our immediate thought was, oh gosh, we're worried about her, what's going to happen. No children locally, maybe at all. And, so we need to come up with a solution ASAP in this case. I want this person to be alone. We reached out to Jason. Jason reached out to you. Is that how it all went down? Okay. You found out from Jason? Okay. So
Never use the mic.
it's my he can always fix it, right? He's our MacGyver at Woodland Pond. So, if I need something in the middle of the night, I think that was holiday weekend.
Yes, it was a holiday weekend.
Yeah.
It was the night of the snowstorm, the big snowstorm.
Yeah. So it was the night of that big storm. Jason, I need help. We got to figure out a solution. He said, let me see if I have anybody that can go. And Vicki, I don't know, but she left her home. Here. She's here, lives in New Paltz. She immediately volunteered to go home, get overnight clothing and what she needed, and went to the residence and stayed with that resident overnight. There was no hesitation. There was absolutely no hesitation. And, Vicky lives close by. She knows the residents, obviously cares for them. We reached out to the husband to make sure that he became comfortable with us. And he was so appreciative. My understanding is she was also equally open to your presence that night.
Very much, so, yes. Hey, friends, stayed up all night pretty much.
Girls' night.
Yes.
So I share that with you to say, I know that a lot of you know that the people at Woodland Pond are very special. And, we have an issue that we need to deal with right now, which is our census in the health center. So we are implementing independent living resident assistance. I've described them multiple times on my weekly addresses. You can look at that generally what we're trying to accomplish, but we've started. And Vicki is working directly with Cameron. Cameron is taking over the lead on helping case manage these things because it's a lot. So Cameron and Annika and Liz and Vicki, to start with, are already implementing steps to provide this support. And what that has looked like this week already is we currently have 4 or 5 residents that are ready to discharge from skilled nursing in the next 2 weeks. And in each of those cases, Vicki will be providing one-on-one additional support in the independent living apartment as those people transition back. And so in order to accomplish that, what we have done is made sure that she's been introduced to those people while they're in skilled nursing. She's attending meetings, attending rehab sessions with them in their apartments, so she can understand what their physical needs are going to be. And she cannot do, hands-on care. It's not a clinical position, but she can be in the room when rehab is looking around and saying, okay, we need to make sure that your furniture is out of the way, and this rug is an issue, and you need to be very cognizant of, moving your body this way, and having Vicki be there when those sessions are happening is super important because she'll be able to help with that transitional period of time. Making sure we'll have all their reservations set, or that they have groceries in, they have meal prep done, making sure that all their post-discharge are scheduled according with what needs to get done. Transportation is scheduled. Making sure that these people have a physical therapy schedule and get there, and she will assist with that physically. Sure that the apartments and units are picked up, and helping with making sure that if there's our incontinence issues, that she can help, dispose of incontinence products, keeping on top of laundry. And Cameron and Liz and Annika and Vicki have created what I would refer to as sort of a case management or a care plan document, and it will be customized to each person. And it includes categories of hygiene, medication/treatment support, housekeeping, meal prep, errand activities, because it's going to be very important for Vicki to help make sure that that resident has a schedule of their normal activities. They have a plan to get people reintegrated. It's a reintegration process. Activities of daily living, and then a miscellaneous category because someone might have pet issues, or the miscellaneous will be for other things. So each case managed plan or care plan is going to be customized by that team, and it will be iterative. We're reviewing some additional applicants because obviously Vicki can't be here 7 days a week. So Vicki's going to be sort of the lead on this, and she'll be a preceptor for the additional staff that we bring in. And it will change a bit here and there, but we're very excited about this. I think the first visits have gone well.
They've gone very well indeed. I've been meeting the folks and seeing their needs and following what Michelle says, the rehab folks, learning quite a lot. I'm having fun. Appropriate to say I'm having fun watching rehab.
Well, that's very inappropriate.
But it's learning, and I'm excited. It's only been a couple of days, so how Michelle said it's an iterative process, so it'll be crucial to hear your feedback and what needs are being met, what needs you'd like to. And yeah, so I'm sort of the guinea pig for this position, so I'll probably have a lot to say about going in the next couple of weeks or so. So thank you all for your patience. I'm really looking forward to daily activity.
Yeah, and we had a situation yesterday that arose that didn't fall squarely into this program per se, but there was a resident that has recently experienced a significant loss in her life and just clearly needed some companionship. And I understand that you stayed with her for
And, it was a quick help with the computer issue that turned into about a little over an hour of just sitting and by the end we're holding hands, and it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to get to know her.
get my bed.
A lot of her experience, story. It was emotional.
So needless to say,
In the morning, then I don't think to take them.
Can we turn the heat up a little bit?
No, I just have a t-shirt on and no socks or shoes. It's almost over here. I just want to do something, put some water in it.
I want.
An additional worker, because we hired a social worker. My understanding was for transitions. I understand that it's a different story, but together,
so these positions are completely in addition to the existing staff, and this is again to supplement in light of the fact that we have residents that we know care, assisted living or so, but we don't have a bed for them right now. So we have a contractual obligation to all of you to provide those services. So this is one way that we can do that without saying to you, you know, you really need assisted living, go pick another place and we'll pay for it. That does not feel right to us. So we are making this investment. And there will not be charges for this for Vicky's time. So this is being covered by your monthly service fees. We're absorbing that. We don't have the bed to provide you. We have the contractual obligation. Annika is very heavily involved. So our team works together. Annika is still providing her one-on-one and other support. When she's focusing on transitions, she's really hyper-focused on new people coming in and making sure that they transition in well, that are really truly ready to make a transition to the health center. Vicki and RAs are really coming back into independent living after either hospitalization or skilled nursing. And then others that may just naturally deteriorate to the point, even without a skilled nursing or hospitalization, that would otherwise need assisted living, but we don't have a bed. So it's a little bit of a different audience, but yes.
Might be presumptuous, but I think I'm speaking for everyone in mental health alone. This is the kind of thing we've talked about at great length. And thank you very much for implementing yet another aspect. Distance. Related to that, I mean, I don't know if you are considering also to involve the different committees or groups. There is a list of volunteers that do a number of things.
Sure.
Wayne is, for instance, one of them, and working in the health center and so on. But I think conceptually, you should look also at ways to involve residents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, we welcome that. I think the more we can all work together, because this is one community. And I know from talking to a lot of you that you feel the most purpose in your day when you've been able to meaningfully help a resident neighbor. So we should really just focus on continuing to increase those opportunities as far as I'm concerned. And thank you for tying it right. This is like a tag team, like Tom Frog, really better, way better. Okay. I know we have 1 minute left. I just want to make one logistical announcement because it just came up yesterday, and it's important for you to know about because it's a slight change to the plans related to the Performing Arts Center construction. And Dave will be talking about it more tomorrow, and notices will be going up. But if you have gone out this door anytime recently, you see that at this point, the land is totally excavated, basically right up to that sidewalk. It's actually kind of shocking, like when you walk by, because it's like that human reactions, like not falling into a hole. Luckily, there's a fence there, but anyways, the reason that it's excavated to there is because that door will always remain there. So that door will be there once the new performing arts center is there. But currently, we are excavating. Not we. They are excavating to put in the foundations and the footings, which are basically the concrete structures that support the eventual performing arts center that will come out of the ground. Because of the location of the new performing arts center, that foundation has to be right up to where the edge of the building there, which basically abuts that sidewalk. As of yesterday, there was a thought by the construction manager, like last minute, which I was very unhappy about, that they were gonna have to close that door and remove that sidewalk and do all of the excavation and then replace the sidewalk after some further excavation was done. So we kind of put an emergency plan in place yesterday. That was gonna be for 4 weeks. Dave just came into my office and said, we found a different solution. So that sidewalk is going to be temporarily rerouted. So some of the shrubs that are there right along the building and one tree are going to come out. They're going to pour a temporary sidewalk to move right along the building. So it's going to be a Z sidewalk instead of coming out this way and going this way. You'll go right along the building. You'll cut back in, so they can still do the excavation work that they need to without closing this door off. Yeah. So I just want to make sure everyone's on the lookout for that and just aware that that's going to happen. The last thing is we are currently today writing the letters to thank everyone that contributed to the capital campaign in 2025, tax preparers. So you will have those if you made a contribution. Those letters will be going to you in case you were wondering. They're being prepared as we speak.
We have just heard a very information from you on a variety of topics. To explain things very clearly. And I know we're out of time, and I know that there will be more that will come up. Thank you so much. So, we have a motion to adjourn. Anna and
Thank you. I suggested this. No, this is wrong. That's for the I tell you who we
Most of the people hanging out.
No, it's
I know.